Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Propagandacast Addendum with me, your host, Imperial Dane, a master of propaganda. Covering this time the patch coming up, in fact, right here tomorrow. Yes, indeed, the big August patch. Or is it September? No, it's September, right? Yeah, sorry. Anyways, big patch coming up here tomorrow either way. Christ, it's a bit bad when I can't remember what month we're in, but, you know, a bit late in the evening, and it's not really something I follow in too much. But anyways, patch coming up, lots of balance changes. I mean, that's basically what should be up there in the balance pre-will. It's been tested, looked after, and so on, you know. A lot of changes coming down there. The pipelines are more general, but others, you know, also army-specific, some with bigger impact than others. And as usual, the Oberkommando, of course, doesn't get anything really huge there. I mean, no surprise there, I suppose, but there you go. So, little heads up there for those curious in that regard. But onwards we go. I mean, there's initially some bigger changes there. For example, I mean, all of the maps, auto-match maps, losing all that cold tech deep snow out window wasn't helpful. I mean, they could have probably done it better, but that probably would have cost them more time than was worth it and would take away from other things. They just basically scrapped it for auto-match. Fair enough, can't blame them for that. So, just a heads up there. Infantry flamethrowers overall also getting a change there. They're going to be a lot more effective. They're going to lose the damage over the time. That's basically going to be now the realm of vehicle flamethrowers. There's flamethrower half-tracks, flamethrower tanks, flamethrower Zeppelins. No, they're not in there, but you know, in theory, if they were, they'd also have that. Infantry flamethrowers and then get a bit more damage buff. They sort of get more sort of streamlined, I suppose, in some sense, and they actually do more damage, which means, you know, pioneers, engineers, Strafniki, rifle flamethrowers, you know, they all benefit. Overall, the Surge benefit the most from that one, but of course, so the American and the American do. Overcommanders, of course, not at all, because they've got no flamethrowers. Hey. So yeah, nothing there. But overall, again, infantry flamethrowers, no damage over time, which again means they can't perhaps, you know, quite deal with emplacements and dugging units quite as easily, but you know, they still get damage bonus versus them, so they're sort of more direct, but again, they are more vulnerable. So in that sense, they're sort of more shock flamethrower units, but again, can be mostly dealt with. At least, well, Strafniki, of course, are going to be tougher to deal with. So a few things there, a few things there. Of course, we're probably seeing more flamethrowers in some senses, at least from the Russians. Americans will probably still be using that happily, and I imagine the pioneers will certainly still see uses there, because a flamethrower is still a good flamethrower to, you know, burn the enemy with. So there's not going to be any sort of larger changes there. There's also going to be some fixing there for both the light infantry gun and the pack howitzer over Command West USF. Basically, they weren't really reliable before, and when it came to suppression, now it might suppress, it might not. It was a bit of a toss-up. Now that's fixed. Apparently, that should sort of, you know, be happening regularly. If it hits nearby, they're suppressed. No chance of getting out again, at least easily, for those bastards. So that's also an improvement there for both the Americans and the Oberkommando West. Now, moving on to a more specific one, for the Brits, for example, there are some, overall, it's basically nerfs. I mean, there's some units that have been deeply overperforming. Crocodiles, less damage now, less health, which is one of the things that's tricky about them. Aviary as well, less damage, less health, though it has been changed, so it still does a lot of damage versus buildings and the likes, but it's less sort of damage versus anything in particular vehicles. It's not going to be quite, you know, the tank destroyer it is currently, so that's, you know, an improvement. Wasp, also some changes there. Doesn't quite do as much damage, which is also the problem. Could easily light an entire unit on fire in a matter of seconds, which was less than good. It can still kill, but it's not quite as fast, which gives the enemy a bit more time to react. So that's also a benefit, as a general rule. I mean, the closer call buff is basically they sort of switched around how the teching course operate. For example, you know, come up platoon post, company command post. They are now cheaper themselves. The specialization on the other hand now costs more. So, I mean, for example, quicker hit tier 2 and you quicker hit tier 3. But again, to specialize, for example, getting access to the Bofors, getting access to the AC, getting access to Anvil and Hammer, that's going to cost more. AC, though, has been made cheaper as well, though. So it's actually now 50 fuel. So that's not too bad. I mean, there are some trade-offs here and there. Bofors also got hit with a nerf stick. That thing was basically overperforming. Way too easily murdering infantry. That wasn't really good. Brace has also been nerfed. Now there's like a 45-second delay. Might be over the top, we'll have to see, but at least you can't just keep popping it down all the time. In theory, you were still basically suppressing the weapon, but when you can't really damage it enough in return, it stops really being much of use either. So, some changes there as well. Which do mean you have to be a bit more careful with your emplacements when you actually put them up. You sort of have a bit of a bigger plan with them actually in mind. So don't, just get me cleared out. And of course, larger scale defences will also be necessary. So there's going to be some thoughts. Overall, they'll still be potent, but some changes. Also, you can't no longer stuff a machine gun in and sort of get the bonus, and also have them be a machine gun emplacement. That one's gone too. Sorry, people. Beyond that, there's not really so much else for the Brits. Commandos also got a nerf, so you actually have a bit of time to act. Problem with the Commandos is basically once you got within close range, you screwed. You had no chance of getting out of there. They were just basically hardened killers. I still think they could do with a bit of nerfs, and still pretty sure the Sten guns act like assault rifles. Not something I'm hugely a fan of. So yeah, there's a bit there as well to keep in mind. But beyond that, also command vehicle. The command vehicle upgrade, less of a bonus, but also less of a debuff to the unit you actually called in on. So that's also nice. But beyond that, I don't think there's so much else for the Brits, if I recall correctly. Comet got a slight nerf. Nothing huge. There were some bigger ones, but they rather reverted that, which I think was the better choice. I don't think there was much reason to sort of over-nerf the Comet. That doesn't quite make as much sense, so little heads up there. For the Wehrmacht, I mean, Flamethrower Half-Deck, for example, loses its ability to treat force. It also gains more range. That's something. German Mortar gets hit very hard with a nerf. It's almost, down to only half the speed it always can. I mean, it probably needed a nerf, but, I think they might have hit it a bit too hard. You still have to remember the Germans are still overall dealing with the forces that in most cases are larger than them. I mean, might have been a bit too hard, then probably make the mortar less effective versus the Russians, which could also be a problem there. Same with the sniper. Basically, again, versus the Soviets, sniper was alright, more men, but problem is when it comes to the Americans, that problems kind of appearing. And versus the Brits, the units are simply too small unless they get that, buff up, that is the bolstered units, and then a bit tricky. So in that sense, the sniper took a hit to rate of fire, basically. So he's not going to sort of quite as great versus the Brits right off the bat, basically. So, I mean, with that chance, he's still going to be decent, but, that's changed as well. Little, important point. Stooks and both E and G lose the target weak point. Pack 40 should still retain it. Well, not lose it, but basically their version is only going to disable the gun for a brief amount of time, which I do believe, though, is longer than a stun. So basically, if you're on to stun tank now, it's going to come down to the Pack 40. Stug E and G doesn't work. Penetration, of course, still applies. I mean, it's still pretty good for just getting guaranteed hit, and still disabling the gun until an IS-2 is also going to be pretty nice. So, it's not all bad. It's not all bad. At the same time, Tiger Ace is also losing target weak point. We can might as well just keep sort of following there. It gains overall nothing else really, though. It just basically loses target weak point. Tiger Tank, regular one, gains a bit more range initially, but also loses the extra range a bit there on Veteran T2. So overall, still a Veteran T2, but you have 50 range, but I have 45 range right off the bat. Also, it has less population, which all applies to a lot of the heavy armor. Elephant also gets it. It loses its focus of sight, which, yeah, I guess is nice, but I don't think we're going to see a lot more elephants because of that. Its utility is still overall rather limited in most engagements. Panzerwaffe, though, is I think one of the winners there. They aren't one of the few winners. It basically gets better scatter. That is, it scatters less. AoE works better of it, and it gets suppression. I've been asking for suppression for some time, so it's nice to actually, maybe Relic is listening to me. Either way, get suppression, meaning, it's a lot more of a, shock weapon. Good stuff there. Good stuff there. Now, there's actually a reason to consider getting them, sort of harming your opponent, in particular if he's blobbing up. Panzerwaffe is going to ruin his day like no one else's business. Good stuff there. Panzer Grenadiers are also getting something. I'm not really confident on that one. Basically, sort of attritional buff. Basically, they cost slightly less to reinforce, and that's basically not the way to go around. I mean, really, that's not going to much. It's 3 manpower less. That's not going to fix anything. And again, the problem is, again, I really think they rather should be looking into sort of buffing their assault rifles a bit, giving them some extra ability or something. Just, not that. So, I mean, while it's a nice thought, I don't think it's going to work out. And there's no real change, for example, to the Stormtroopers either, which could also benefit it. Maybe make the assault rifle upgrade cheaper or better, or give them some better veterancy bonus. I mean, really, there's a lot there to work with the Stormtroopers, but overall, I don't think the route there from Relic here is good with the Panzer Grenadiers, certainly also not with the Stormtroopers. But I think they're rather essentially a bit close together there. Part of me would also say maybe consider changing out the Stormtroopers' grenade ability, maybe let's say a concussive grenade, give us a little bit more of a shock effect that way. Could work, would also make them, less directly clear to the Panzer Grenadiers, a less direct line there, but, just some thoughts. Beyond that, there's not really so much else with the Wehrmacht. I mean, again, there's mostly nerfs, a few buffs, but overall the only one really of any notice is the Panzerwerfer 42 buff. I mean, there's no real change, for example, to the issues with the Wehrmacht Tier 2 versus like quick T-70s or Stuarts or air half-tracks. Nothing really Tier 2. I mean, it gets better versus snipers, and all that one forgot up most of the vehicles of this M20s, Dodge trucks, Kugelwagens, Universal Carriers, all that gets a buff versus snipers, 50%. So, I mean, overall there'll be more sniper hunters now. Good stuff there. But overall, I mean, nothing else for the 222. Again, nothing that sort of really makes it more survivable, have a better chance. And 251 doesn't really get tougher either. Yeah. Not really a fan of that one either. So some, issues there. I mean, overall, still some buffs, but overall it's mostly nerfs and such, and nothing, again, really sort of think, in terms of buffs, that sort of really helps where it is needed, I feel. I might be wrong there, but I don't know. Then we have the Soviets. They got a lot of sort of changes there. For example, Partisans, for example, the big winners there. They sort of get more, shall we say, streamlined. No longer have a chance of getting this and this. Personally, I liked it, but I can also see the argument for not doing it. It was for too unreliable on people. So now when you call in anti-infantry partisans, you get submachine guns, anti-tank partisans, always with a Panzerschreck. So that's certainly a change to the anti-infantry partisans, also cheaper. So, I mean, overall, that should make partisan doctrine also more useful. Also, anti-tank partisans are now replacing irregulars in reserve armies. So that should also make reserve army a bit more interesting as well. So, I mean, overall, two doctrines certainly got a large buff. That's good. IS-2 gets a population hit, so it becomes cheaper in that sense, which might be nice for some people. Might certainly not punish a Soviet player for, getting other tanks, say some T-34s, because they also cross less population now. Also, I think a good choice there. ISU, less population as well, loses also focus site, so you're going to have to use something else to spot for it. Amongst other things, that's rather relics logic there. Same with the Elephant. What else is there? Alright, there's the PVH-41s for the conscripts. The change there happens there, and it's also another reason why I really think the Panzer are going to do a buff. It's going to be a non-buff, basically, is because they're changing the conscript submachine gun upgrade into basically being an assault rifle. I mean, probably not going to quite, the same level as the Sturmgewehr, but it will still, have more or less the same profile. It's good at short range and medium range. In fact, I'll probably better at short range than the assault rifles. And then on a really cheap unit like the conscripts at a low munitions costs, I think that one's going to end up a bit badly. Conscripts also get a bit of an extra buff there, they're 23, bit harder to hit there. So I think that's going to be troublesome, and I think that could lead to some problematic, lot of PPH-40 spam. I mean, really, the logic is, oh well, it shouldn't be a trade-off. It's supposed to be a trade-off. It's a submachine upgrade. You can't have your cake and eat it. It's a submachine gun, not an assault rifle. You want to make it more viable, buff the submachine gun, maybe give them abilities, something again like the Stormtroopers, give them something extra to make it more worthwhile. Or just, say, give them all 6 assault rifles. There's not really much reason, only give 3 of them submachine guns anyways. Instead of just 3, so, give them all that. I think that would make it a lot more worth it too. That would make more sense, but, otherwise just turning them into assault rifles essentially is, I think, a very poor idea. And that's certainly also, again, diminishes any sort of changes. The Panzers are now going to have a trouble dealing with those troops as well, since they're now going to sort of hit at even what they're supposed to be, their effective range. So that one, I think, is going to be problematic, without a doubt. Otherwise, so Teching receives some changes. Tier 3, slightly harder to hit. They lose a bit of fuel they're starting. On the other hand, the Tier 1 buildings, say Special Rifle Command, Support and Company, costs a lot less fuel now, which basically means, while initially it's going to be different, you're still going to be sort of only get one at the start. At the same time, in theory, you can get both buildings now for a lot less fuel. A lot less. That's going to have an impact. That also means, for example, you can either more easily just get both buildings right away, having a broader Tier 1, or you can more easily backcheck to one of them and say, in case you go Special Rifle Command, realize, shit, I need anti-tank guns, comrade. Backcheck, get it up. Much cheaper fuel. Not delaying your armor too much either. So that's definitely going to some impacts there. I'm not sure how that's going, but I'm definitely not against it. It could very well prove to be good. It's not really going to fix, for example, with the 8 extra fuel there, for example, on Tier 3. It's not, for example, going to help, against the T-70 a half-track. A half-track, well, they got a nerf, less penetration, less accuracy on the move, can't reinforce either. I'm not confident that's really going to have a huge effect there, really, in particular not when the T-70 gets anything. So that's... jury's out on that one, for the time being, but I'm not confident in that one. Not confident. Molotov has also received some changes. It does less damage initially. It still has damage over time, but initially it's not going to just, quickly clear out a few units, which is one of the problems with it. It could actually easily end up, say, killing up half an MG crew, or maybe annihilating in one go, so that was problematic. That's good, that's sorted out. It might cause some problems, though, again, with flamethrowers being buffed, submachine guns buffed, again, in a way I'm not liking. Teching being buffed, a lot of other things really being buffed. I mean, overall, the Soviets are benefiting a lot from this, particularly also with the sniper being nerfed and Wehrmacht mortar being nerfed. That one's really going to be felt against the Soviets, and I fear, without something to fix up the grenadiers, for example, or make the Panzer grenadiers more attractive, it's just going to really result in more grenadier spam, which was already pretty prevalent. That is one of my big issues with this patch, is doing nothing about grenadier spam. Nothing at all. That's really one of the things they should have been looking into, making the grenadiers more expensive, but they're not. Also being a bit better, but still not happy about that one. I definitely think that's a bit of a miss there on Relic's side. I think that overall covers life for the Soviets. There'll probably always be something, I sort of forget one or two in a really big one, but there you go. Then we're looking at the Americans. Ambulance gets some changes, for example. It now sort of, instead of you having to constantly push the ability, it's now sort of an all-around kill. Always on. Good stuff there. Didn't make sense otherwise. I mean, that's great, though. Of course, it does make the medics inside it, less and less. Of course, you just switch them rear shots, in which case you got 2 heal points now at all times. That's also great, though, if you look at it like that. So that's not too bad. Shermans get more penetration, the regular one. I'm not a fan of that one. I mean, it was basically armor buff or penetration buff, essentially. I rather would have preferred an armor buff. I think penetration buff overall just means, medium armor means less, which is always something I find a bit sad. So I'd rather see, more armor for the M4A3. And then the EC8 also gets a buff. It has more penetration up close. It also gets more health. Now, that one I don't understand, really. I think that one's a bit off. I don't really think the EC8 needed any sort of buff, or at least like that. And I mean, it's already rather cheap then. I think it's only just going to be, you get more out of it for more or less the same price as a T-35, but the T-35 doesn't quite have the same level of penetration. There's more health, but not the armor either. That's... yeah... Again, I think something's slightly off there. I mean, they're going to have to buff the T-35 as well to sort of make this make any kind of sense as well. Otherwise, it just seems a bit like American favoritism, I suppose. I don't know, hard to say. Alright, not particularly huge on that one. And there's some other American changes I'm not so huge on either. Rifleman, for example, get a 25% received accuracy modifier at Veteran 3. Sounds really nice until you just think about it for a brief while, because again, the German Volksgunners had some larger of those buffs as the Veterans are, and that was deemed to be a pretty bad idea, so why they're giving it to the Rifleman is beyond me. I fear it will only lead to blobbing and other such poor play, in particular since the BAR works better on the move, which is not really something you want to combine with, That again really seems like a blob enabler. So, not fans of that, not fan of that. I really think they should have gone for something else. Maybe made an available upgrade for the Americans, maybe bolster squads, or, squad leader upgrade. That would also have been pretty great. Sadly, they didn't, so I think that's going to be problematic down the road. And I fear for the blobs ahead. They also made the Thompson submachine gun, function like an assault rifle, and like with the submachine for the Soviets, it isn't just apparently for the conscripts. It's, lieutenant, captain, airborne, vehicle crews. I think that's going to be a big problem as well. It wasn't exactly like paratroops running performing, and they're only going to get better now. Vehicle crews certainly might see more usage, but still not a fan of it should be like that. And again, lieutenant is only get better with the BAR buffed and the Thompson buffed. And the lieutenant wasn't exactly a poor infantryman to start with. So that's definitely going to be, a bit up the wrong alley. Preystoke got buffed, more shots per barrage. That's good, no problems there. Beyond that, I don't think there was so much else for the Americans. Again, the M20, the Dodge truck got buffed, that's good. No real issues there. Beyond that, I don't think there's much else sort of in the buff direction for the American Army, if I recall correctly. Oh yes, one other, and one also I've been requested for some time, and again, maybe they listened to me there. Bazooka got cheaper. 50 mission now compared to 60. That should be nice there. Might sort of incentivize more people towards using it. So that should be nice. That should be nice. I fear any cheaper, and it's just going sort of like a wall of bazookas, because that's, you know, how people really want it, in particular ones who really think it's useless. They just want to get a wall of bazookas and fire. The problem is American squads are basically too big to sort of allow that. I mean, if they're 4-man squads, sure, but they're not. A bit of a problem again. That's also why the Volksgrenadiers with Panzerix are a bit problematic. But how much for the Oberkommando West? Overall, not so much. Yeah, the Volksgrenadiers got an incendiary grenade. That's, yeah, nice. It's basically like a Molotov, I suppose. Neat, but actually more expensive than the Molotov to use. I suppose to help with darkening units and the likes, but emplacements beyond that, it's not really going to happen much, I think. I mean, it's nice. Looser than the regular grenade, though. Not entirely sure how to react to that one, but, you know, could be worse. And it's only going to be a complete waste of resources. But, you know. Now, I think for the Sturm Pioneers, light infantry guns veterans one ability. No more of those hull rounds. It's now a range and barrage buff, that is, shoots faster and longer. That's alright. No problems there, no comments, no issues. And then there's a lot of serious attritional bonuses, similar to the Panzergrenadiers for the Obersoldaten and the Fallschirmjägers. Obersoldaten maybe, but again, it's not going to have much effect. And the Fallschirmjägers I just don't get. They're pretty damn good. They don't need such a bonus. In particular, not for the Oberkommando West, which generally one of the problems, it's floating in manpower. I think they might have gone a bit backwards there, to put it simply. I don't really think that's necessary. Infant half-track got a small fuel cost, probably to ensure that you can't get free fuel out of it. Fair point there. King Tiger got a bit of extra range like the Tiger, 45 range. Going to help a bit there, but overall I think I'll prefer, you know, maybe make it cheaper. Getting more armour, more damage, more range. Not really sure what the logic behind that one is. They also make the Jagdjäger cheaper. That works. I mean, it'll actually make it a bit more viable in 1 versus 1s. Beyond that, there's not really much else to comment on the Jagdjäger. Allies are going to hate it. Wehrmacht Axis might slightly use it more. In particular, on 1 versus 1s, there might be a slight increase in overall utility. Beyond that, there's not really so much else to comment on the Oberkommando. It's based sort of like, you know, small buffs that's essentially going to have zero effect on the gameplay. They're just there. I mean, infantry gun's going to be neat. Also, Stuka's got more damage versus in place, but again, they have a bit of an effect versus it, but beyond that, nothing really. I mean, really, in that Oberkommando West case, the infantry gun is basically the big winner there. It sort of becomes better, but, you know, beyond that, also Jagdjäger, I suppose, can be considered a small winner. Beyond that, I think there's not so much. I've probably missed a few points here and there, and one of them will probably be big, others not so much. But all those, I think, are some of the more important points. And again, I do have some caveats here. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in it, though. It's not all bad. It's not to say this is a terrible patch. But I do think it's a patch which is missing some vital points. I think it's a patch which is focusing, or at least making some wrong decisions when it comes to certain infantry elements. And overall to misses some points. But overall it's a pretty good patch. It might make certain doctrines more viable again, which is always good. So, I mean, no complaints there. Hopefully it might change up the metagame. But I'm not entirely sure how much it's going to change up the metagame in certain cases. So, of course, we'll have to say it's a lot harder to predict in some senses. But, I mean, overall it should be pretty interesting. Overall. So, you know, look forward to it. I certainly am. Not always, though, of course, and I fear some things might probably need a quick fix, or at least another rather swift balance preview to sort it all out, because, again, I'm really worried about those infantry submachine gun changes. Those are the ones I rather are not so particularly on. I mean, those are the big caveats. They're Riflemen and Thompson SMG and conscripts PP841s. Those are the ones I am not really particularly liking, and the ones I'm most worried about, really. But there you go. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it gave you some clear ideas sort of there, and of course gave you my opinion on, which is always something people ask for. Dane, what do you think of this patch? This is also why I will do all these kind of videos, to explain what I think about the patch. So there you go. Hopefully it's been educational, enlightening, and hopefully you are more prepared now to handle what is coming tomorrow. So thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and hope to see you another time. Bye.